My friends, you intelligent people, you smart do-gooders, you conscious folks. What are you? You happy people out there in the world that are watching me. I'm happy too, because I'm doing something that I really like doing. This is good stuff, man, and I'm learning so much. I never really thought that I liked in particular Black history like I do. Well, now hold on. I've always been conscious, but I've learned some things that that I didn't know, and maybe other people might have known. I don't think the schools taught me, which is really the emphasis on why I did the documentary that I did and wrote the book. But as you might know, I'm Anthony Brogdon. Let me get that in. And I've been enlightened as a result of this channel. My mission is to inspire, to educate, and entertain. I came up with that one. That might be a good one for me. And so good things are happening here. The gentleman I got on the channel today is a heavyweight guy who you're gonna really like him. You're really gonna like my guest today. That's because I talked to him just a second ago, and he agreed, first of all, to come on the channel. And I said to him, I said, man, I got a couple questions that might be a little tough. He said, please ask them. I'm okay with the tough question. And you're gonna understand why when we get to talking of what I mean. I got my own festival coming up. You know, I'm telling everybody, and I'm mentioning this, it's in Quindaro, Kansas, May 27th through the 29th. It's called Freedom Quindaro. We're gonna have a party Friday night, maybe drink a little moonshine, not much. We're gonna have a tour of the area, and then we're gonna have, let's call it a Black picnic. How about that? Because, you know, that picnic, I didn't know this. This is one of the things I know, but it had a different connotation back in the day. So we're going to do all that. And then we're going to have church service on Sunday. I'm going to make sure that it's very well organized. When you come in, you're going to know exactly where to go, what to do. And all that we're going to do, you'll be happy with. Just got to have the good weather. And they, you know, I'm hoping that's the case. I'll have more information on that. And just yesterday, I came up with a second location, which is in Elaine, Arkansas. I was talking to the lady in Elaine. I had never heard of Elaine. I had never heard of what happened in Elaine, where over 200 African-American brothers and sisters were killed while they were just in the field for no reason. It's devastating. It just doesn't have the notoriety as Tulsa, because they didn't burn down buildings and that kind of thing, except the church where the people was meeting in. They shot that one up. And the next day they came through and they burned it down because they didn't want the people to see the evidence. And so I'm not scared. So I'm going down to Elaine. I want 400 or 500 y'all to meet me there. That will be September 30th, 2022. A lot of good things is happening. I have my Black Men in the Suit Day this coming Saturday. I don't know if the video will play before then, but at least you'll know about it when it said the first Saturday of every October, every year, I do this event. This is the second time. It's just little old me coming up with it. I want you to wear a suit. You don't have to do nothing but just wear it and be happy. There's a lot of things going down on this channel. Lot of stuff. People hit me up. I got a lady on the channel from Australia. I got a lady on the channel from Nova Scotia. I got a lady on the channel from Ireland. I got a guy on the channel from South Africa. I from London, England, and all them places, and all throughout America, just like my guest today. My man, he's sitting there, he patient, he's smiling. He good looking guy. Watch out, I'm telling you, you're gonna trip on this man. He's different kind of guy. I find different people that tell it like it is. My man, I'm gonna lead in one more thing before I go back to what I gotta say. My man is so tight, he wrote a book on it. All right. I'm a filmmaker, everybody. This is my film. It's called Business in the Black, The Rise of Black Business in America, 1800 to 1960. Slaves who went to college, slaves who owned businesses. And Madam C.J. Walker, I'm gonna be honest with you, don't tell nobody I told it, but you heard it here. She was not the first Black millionaire. I got people on here, one guy was worth 20 million in those dollars back in the 1800s. You gotta watch my movie, it's streaming on Amazon. Come on and watch it. And then you really must read my book. And I'm gonna give you a couple clues. I'm not no book reader type guy. I like them when they go straight to the point. That's how I wrote this. It's over 200 facts, all of them straight to the point. I found the fact, I reworded it, keep it the same, so it ain't plagiarism, right? And then if you don't believe the fact, I give you the link of where I found the fact. And if you read my book and you know everything that's in this book, I give your money back. A book with a money back guarantee. Unbelievable. I'm that confident. And I sell 10 books, I donate one to a school because the kids got to know this stuff. That's what I do. So go to my website. Don't go to Amazon. Go to my website, businessintheblack.net. I accept all them credit cards, PayPal. You can even Cash App me. All right. Check me out. I'm serious, man. And I'm so excited. Let me tell you, I got my man on, he waiting. I got 2 more minutes, 1 more minute, 30 more seconds. How about that? I'm excited he come on my channel because I've been thinking about this. I've been telling my friends and the people. Matter of fact, follow me on Twitter at A Strong Dream is my Twitter. And I've been tweeting it that he coming on the channel. And here he is. He got a shirt and a tie on and a suit, and he's ready to tell us this stuff. Come on, man. Hit that subscribe button on this Strong Inspirations. Hit the like button on this video. If you don't like none of the other ones I got, you're gonna like this one. So hit the like button, hit the notifications bell, and tell somebody about Strong Inspiration. Don't keep it to yourself. And now you've heard me on a few occasions already today use that word strong. It's my favorite word. I like it. Everything I do, I call the word strong. If I get me a boat, the word of the boat gonna be named strong. And strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace, which is the lead-in on my guest. He's a strong man because he decided to do what he's doing and to share it with us. So come on, my friend, introduce yourself. Let's get it on. I'm telling you, I'm overjoyed that you're on the channel.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be with you. Thank you very much. Yep, my name is J. Chester Johnson. Why do I use the J? Because everybody on my father's side for 3 or 4 generations, it was John Johnson. So we had to separate ourselves by figuring out things in the middle. So it's J. Chester Johnson.
I love it.
So that's how it came about. I guess we're here to talk about the Elaine Race Massacre.
No, we got a little bit more than that to do, my friend.
Okay, where do you want me to start?
I got to ask the questions on you. Where were you born? Where are you from?
Well, I was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee, but that was an accident. My family on both sides were from Arkansas. My father died when I was 1, so my mother left Chattanooga, brought me to Little Rock, and she didn't do very well, so I lived with my maternal grandparents in Little Rock, Hattie and Lonnie Birch, and but all of my background is in Arkansas.
In Arkansas.
Right.
So you went to like you said, you said this, you went to grade school and high school in Arkansas.
Yes, I did, but it was not in Little Rock. When I got to be 5 years old, my mother brought my older brother and me together under one roof in a small town in southeast Arkansas by the name of Monticello, which was actually only about one county removed from the site of this massacre, Elaine
Of the
race
massacre.
massacre.
Okay, we're gonna get to the massacre. Okay, what type of how did you get to be so great then under those conditions? Who influenced you to be the conscious person, the financial whiz that you've become?
Well, I wouldn't say financial, but because I just did, but where I come from is I really mean this in sincerity and not just words on it. I mean, I have been interested my whole life in Black liberation. And I mean, when I say my whole life, it really started later in high school and in college. I grew up in a racist family in a racist region. Southeast Arkansas is made up of small communities. There's only one big town, Pine Bluff, and it's notorious for its racism. I mean, two heads of the NAACP have called it the heart of darkness. It's been known as the American Congo because, all that stuff that happened in the Belgian Congo to African Americans. And so I grew up in that environment. By the time I went off to college, right before my junior year, the Freedom Summer happened, and it was a bunch of college students from the North came into Mississippi to register voters, to change habits, to create an environment of integration that Mississippi didn't know about, and they concentrated on the Delta, which is the northwest part of the state. Now, I grew up on the other side of the river. I mean, you can get on the banks of southeast Arkansas and look across the river, and you see the Mississippi Delta.
Okay.
But I was at Harvard at the time that summer, and all this was going on, and I felt, all right, am I going to stumble around here in Massachusetts, or am I going to really learn about this racial revolution that's going on in the South? So I went south, and I had a couple of jobs. I wrote a lot. I've always written, and but I spent for the next 3.5 years. And this was really the seminal point you asked me, what caused me to change my views? And it was during that time. I went south at that time when I was, a junior in college. And for the next 3.5 years, I did what I just said. But when I went south, I was a student. By the time 3.5 years rolled around, my views had obviously codified in a very strong way, use your term. And so I had my views really in place.
Okay.
I moved to New York City, and within a few months, Martin Luther King is assassinated.
Oh.
Now, Martin Luther King had become a major figure for me, and particularly his sense that we needed to learn, we needed to get along, we needed to love. He had this view about use the weapon of love.
Yeah.
And I believed in what he had to say, and I felt I owed him something because he and his movement had led me from darkness into a better person.
Okay, let me stop you there. Here we go. Here go my questions. They tough ones. When you grew up, did you ever have a fight with a black kid?
No, actually, I grew up very close to, there was East Shelton, and then there was East Jackson. East Shelton was where all the white folks lived. East Jackson was where African Americans lived. There were no whites on East Shelton at that time. It was on the other side of the tracks and all that. There were no whites there playing. And this is when I was 5 and 6 and 7 years old. and I became friends with four or five African Americans, and we had a field out in the back that we played in, and I never, I know I really cared for them, but what happened is this was a time of segregation of the educational system. So effectively, it was the institutionalization of segregation that split me from those my friends. I mean, we saw each other
Yeah,
occasionally.
I've heard these stories.
Okay, it was that
Yeah.
it just it caused us to be separated. I saw them a few times when we were teenagers, but that was it.
Okay, let me ask you this: Have
Sure.
you have has a black kid ever done anything to you? Then you know how sometimes I hear that they were like at the theater and y'all sitting down on the ground level and they threw ice over the banister, or at the end of the thing there was fights. You never had that happen to you.
No, never did.
But you saw it.
When I taught, I was going to tell you, I taught in the African American school in my hometown after King died, and I was never treated with any kind of disrespect or in any kind of threatening way. The fact was I was threatened by more whites than I was blacks.
Okay, let's go to
because
that.
I was teaching in a black school, and
Yes.
white folks couldn't understand why I would do what I did.
Okay, let's go to that then. When you were growing up, did you hear the white people say mean things or do
Oh my God, yes. That's what I meant in terms of I grew up in a racist family. Uncles and aunts would really demean African Americans, and that's the environment. My mother would occasionally participate in that. When we were alone, she never really made those vile comments. But when she was with her family, her sisters and brothers and others, bear in mind, as I go for my maternal grandfather participated in, and he was a member of the KKK, and he participated in this massacre. And so that was the environment that I grew up in.
Okay, let me ask you this. So when y'all sitting around the dinner table and somebody says, them niggers did this, them niggers did that?
Sure. Absolutely. And you don't trust them either. That was the thing. And then the person they really focused on when I was growing up was King, because they were very frightened of him. And, why in the world is he doing? Why is he stirring up all of this? And bear in mind, we're Southeast Arkansas, right across the river from Mississippi, Alabama, that was all one culture. And so there was fear. And then around the same time, SNCC started to move into Southeast Arkansas and to register voters and that sort of thing. So they were frightened. And so it accentuated these statements about the terrible things that, the blacks would do. And if you have one rule starts to break and blacks do this, then they're going to break all the rules. And, that's the world I grew up in.
I got you. How about this? What about, did you ever see somewhere a black kid accidentally got in the swimming pool and then all the white people got to get out?
No, never saw
something like that.
That was a fear that African Americans would come in and, jump in the pool. And if that ever happened, we would all get out of the pool and all that. But it never happened. Never happened. Bear in mind, these are places where blacks were lynched. They were burned alive. I mean, it was a cruel, cruel place for blacks to live in.
How could somebody hate somebody that much who they know is a human being? Is there rationale for that?
The only rationale you have, and there's no excuse involved, but I have this theory that people act like that because they're taught to act like that, and because their ancestors going back, parents, grandparents, etc., they talk about it in terms of that way. Okay. And therefore there's this position, they take this position of hatred towards someone because of the pigment of their skin,
Right.
and that channels their otherwise anger and hatred into this group of people.
Okay.
But it's what I put a fancy word on it. It's called filial pietism. If you go to your dictionary, it says excessive veneration of ancestors, traditions, and customs. And I think that explains, I mean, see, I've never, after, for the last 50 years, I haven't really believed that people can be excused in any way for what they did, even before back into the 19th century, or even this 18th century. I think they knew what they were doing. I think that what happened is filial pietism gave them the excuse to do that. It provided them an excuse that it inoculated, camouflaged, it covered them. And so
let me ask you this. So you're answering the questions very well. So when y'all sat around and they said the things, that was the indoctrination to be racist.
Yes, that's right. And it worked. Let me tell you, it worked. And I'll tell you why I know it worked. When my most recent book came out, and even before that, when I taught in the African American school, my family turned against me. And
well, hold on. When you say your family, your mother, uncles, and all the rest, like
my uncles, my brother, my only brother. My mother really didn't turn against me, but she did leave town for most of the year when I taught in the African American school. She didn't want to have to answer questions. Why is Chester teaching in that school? So she went out and spent virtually the whole year living with my brother, who was then living in Arizona. So, but her home was in Arkansas, Southeast Arkansas. But
that's why they were doing it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I do. I mean, for example, when my most recent book came out, I get a call from two cousins, or I'm sorry, a cousin on behalf of a cousin, and he's telling me, well, how do you know that Lonnie Birch participated in this massacre? And I said, I'll send you the report. I'll send it right to you. And I sent it to him, which had all the analysis. Never heard back from him again.
Were you ever?
But I did have one cousin. I had one cousin who stood up for me, but that's the only part of the family. And I'm talking about both sides of my family, mother's side as well as my father's side.
So what does that do for you to have to go against that much grain? I mean, because you got that much of a conviction, and you on the side of right, and eventually you say, well, I can't do no more than this. This is what I got to do. How do you deal with that?
Well, as I said to you, I spent 3.5 years trying to figure all this stuff out. And when I came south during my college years, and I spent that, and it had a major effect on me. And it changed the way I viewed race relations and the way in which I looked at Black liberation. I couldn't change my views. There was no way I could go. I couldn't go back. I couldn't go back to the way I felt or the way in which I saw things. And I've tried to voice my views ever since.
Did you have to leave? Did you have to move? Did you have to worry, lock the door a little bit more, anything like that?
Yeah, well, when I was teaching, how do I explain this? I was teaching, and during that time, it was the year before integration. And for some reason, a lot of the whites in town knew that change has occurring, and they were giving themselves a little time before they moved aggressively against what I did. However, I was attacked. And I was attacked by, do you know the term peckerwoods?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's different than rednecks. Peckerwoods sort of represent the authority, the white authority in these southern white towns. And when I say white towns, I mean, you know, it's
Yeah.
run by white folks. But peckerwoods are those who really go out and keep African Americans frightened. They're the ones who, you know, if you look, you see Mississippi burning, that they're the what peckerwoods are the ones that hurt African Americans physically and all that stuff.
Okay.
So I accidentally found myself in a situation. I was at a corral where peckerwoods had lured me, and I was attacked, and for teaching and for educating African Americans and that sort of thing. But at the beginning of the attack, there was this. It just was like an angel of God. I mean, a big white man. He played center for the Denver Broncos. I mean, bear in mind this is football country too. And he had played center and no one was going to take him on physically. He stepped in front of the people attacking me, and he said, "This is not going to happen."
Okay, let me stop right there. When they attacked, they had already hit you once or twice.
Yes. So, and they had started to, you know, come after me more. And he stepped in the middle and he said, "This is not going to happen." And it was out of the blue. I was at a corral like 2 or 3 miles out of town. And I thought, oh my God, this is going to be bad stuff. And what had happened is the person who lured me had a big mouth and told some people in town, and it was rumored that I was going to be attacked. And so this person who had played center for the Denver Broncos heard about it. And he was white, and he wasn't going to allow it to happen. So he comes out and he saves me.
Wow. That didn't stop you from being who you were, though. Did it? Nope. It made you even more so committed?
From the time I mentioned forward, I've been committed the way I'm committed. I mean, to the extent, even in my writing, you know, I was asked by the Episcopal Church to write their apology when it's called their Day of Repentance, which was October the 4th, 2008. And I wrote the service that they held to officially apologize to African Americans for their role in slavery and related evils. I wrote that, and I've been writing poetry as well as prose for many years.
As we go into the writing, you wrote the book about your great-grandfather, grandfather.
Right.
What's that? Tell us that story, please.
Okay. Well, when I was writing this service, the litany for the Day of Repentance for the Episcopal Church, I came across a writing by Ida B. Wells. You know, she was this anti-lynching and advocate and African American historian, and she had written a 70-page booklet on what she called the Arkansas race riot. And she talked about this event that happened one county over from where I grew up, in Phillips County. I grew up in Drew County, which is only, as I said, one county removed. I said, I've never heard about this. I called up friends from high school and that sort of thing. I said, have you ever heard of this? Nope, never heard about it. None of them. Well, maybe one had made reference to, yeah, I think I heard something about that. So I started researching it. And I spent better part of 3 or 4 years researching it. And I came across the fact that not only did this event happen, but my maternal grandfather participated in it, because he, rather than living in Little Rock, he had most of his career with the Missouri Pacific Railroad was in southeast Arkansas in a place called Shea County, which is right south of Phillips County. And the Missouri Pacific Railroad was really up to its eyeballs in this massacre.
Okay, so
One
now
thing-
everybody, what he's talking about is the Elaine massacre.
Yes. Yeah, the Elaine massacre occurred in late September, early October of 1919. James Weldon Johnson calls it the Red Summer of 1919 because there were so many African American and white conflicts during that period. Sharecroppers in Phillips County, Arkansas. Phillips County is right on the Mississippi River and very rich soil where for generations, rich soil has been deposited on the land there. Wonderful for cotton. Cotton prices were as high as they had ever been, higher than people anticipated. And the sharecroppers had a really bad life there. Now, a lot of those sharecroppers had been veterans in World War I, and they came back and they knew how to take care of themselves, and they were very frustrated because they thought that fighting for the country, for some of whom were considered heroes in Europe and the European theater, World War I, that they'd come back and be treated differently. Well, they weren't going to be treated differently. In fact, whites rose up to say, you may be even treated worse than you were before you left. Well, the way in which sharecroppers lived in there, they borrowed from the commissary, and they would have debts running up to a certain level. When they harvested the cotton, they would be given money and they would go to the commissary, pay off their debts. But there was always a little bit of debt remaining because the sharecroppers couldn't leave that land unless they freed themselves of all the debt. Well, with cotton prices being as high as they were, the white planters were very frightened that if they paid them fair price, any place close to fair prices, then the entire debt would be liquidated and the blacks could leave. The sharecroppers decided to form a union. Well, actually a lodge of a union that had been formed actually in my county, Drew, called the Progressive Farmers and Household Union. They met on the evening to sign up and everything on September the 30th, right. 1919, 100 people in Hoop Spur Church. The white deputy sheriff and the head of security for the Missouri Pacific Railroad came about 11 o'clock at night, pulled up to this slough right next to the church. Two white men